7 men, 1 agency, and a fan base of millions watching every single move. BTS didn't just change K-pop, they rewrote the rules of global entertainment. But here's what most people don't talk about. For every stadium tour and record-breaking album, there's a boardroom decision at HYBE that shapes what ARMY actually gets to see. And not all of those decisions sit well with fans. Some promotions feel strangely quiet. Some solo rollouts raise more questions than answers. And sometimes a single scheduling choice sends millions of fans online demanding explanations. So what's really going on? Why do certain decisions about specific members spark so much debate? Is it a matter of strategy, timing, or something ARMY hasn't been told? In this video, we're breaking down all 7 BTS members, ranked by how often HYBE's decisions about them leave fans asking questions. From Taehyung's global spotlight to Jin's career moves that nobody saw coming, each member has a story that deserves a closer look. Stay until the end, because number 1 might not be who you expect. Let's get into it.
Number 7. Taehyung, always in the spotlight. If there's one BTS member whose mere existence generates headlines, it's Kim Taehyung, known to the world as V. And that's not an exaggeration. It's just what happens when you're consistently ranked among the most handsome faces on the planet and carry a fan base that treats every Instagram post like a global event. Taehyung's appeal has never been limited to music alone. His visual presence, deep baritone voice, and effortlessly cool persona have made him a magnet for fashion brands, film discussions, and cultural conversations that stretch far beyond the K-pop industry. In 2023, he became a global ambassador for Celine, a partnership that felt almost inevitable given how naturally he fits into the high fashion world. His appearances at Paris Fashion Week didn't just trend online, they disrupted traffic and drew crowds that rivaled actual runway shows. But here's where it gets interesting from HYBE's side. When Taehyung released his debut solo album Layover in September 2023, it arrived with a promotional strategy that left a significant portion of ARMY scratching their heads. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, a remarkable achievement by any standard, but fans were quick to point out that the rollout felt unusually quiet compared to what they expected for a member of Taehyung's stature. Limited variety show appearances, fewer pre-release promotions, and a marketing push that some fans described as restrained fueled weeks of online debate. Was it a deliberate artistic choice? Taehyung himself had described Layover as a calm, intimate project, a collection of songs meant to feel like a brief rest rather than a loud statement. The album's jazz and R&B influences reflected a side of him that prioritized mood over spectacle. Tracks like Slow Dancing and Rainy Days weren't designed to dominate dance charts, they were built to linger in your headphones on a quiet evening. So it's entirely possible that a softer promotional approach matched the album's identity. But ARMY isn't known for accepting surface-level explanations without digging deeper. Fans compared Layover's promotion to the rollouts of other BTS solo projects and noticed differences in media coverage, playlist placements, and scheduled appearances. Whether those differences were the result of strategic decisions, scheduling conflicts, or Taehyung's own preferences became a topic that dominated fan forums and social media threads for weeks. The conversation wasn't just about one album. It became a broader question about how HYBE allocates promotional resources across 7 solo careers that are running simultaneously. Then there's the matter of Taehyung's acting ambitions. For years, fans have known about his interest in acting. His cameo appearance in the historical drama Hwarang the Poet Warrior Youth back in 2016 showed genuine potential, and he's spoken openly in interviews about wanting to explore more roles. Yet, as of his military enlistment in December 2023, a full-scale acting project had not materialized. Fans have long speculated about whether HYBE has been cautious about letting Taehyung branch into acting, an industry that operates on very different timelines and contractual structures than music, or whether the group's packed schedule simply never allowed enough room. This speculation isn't baseless. The Korean entertainment industry has a well-documented history of agencies carefully controlling when and how their artists diversify into acting, often weighing the risks of overexposure or brand dilution.
For an artist like Taehyung, whose brand value is enormous, every career decision carries weight that goes beyond personal preference. And then there's his social media presence, which is a phenomenon in itself. Taehyung joined Instagram in December 2021 along with the other BTS members and quickly amassed tens of millions of followers. His posts, often artistic, sometimes cryptic, always engaging, break engagement records regularly. But even here, ARMY has noticed patterns. Periods of silence followed by sudden bursts of activity have led fans to theorize about whether his social media usage is entirely self-directed or influenced by promotional schedules set by HYBE. What makes Taehyung's position at number 7 on this list isn't a lack of attention, it's the opposite. He receives so much attention that even minor decisions about his career become amplified. A single delayed announcement or an unexpected quiet period doesn't just get noticed, it gets analyzed, debated, and dissected by millions of fans across every time zone. His military enlistment, which began in December 2023, added another layer to this dynamic. Like all BTS members fulfilling their mandatory service, Taehyung's enlistment meant a temporary pause on new music and public activities. But ARMY's investment in his career didn't pause with him. Fans continued to stream Layover, promote his existing work, and speculate about what his post-military career might look like. Questions about whether HYBE would prioritize a comeback album, an acting debut, or a fashion-focused career path upon his return became regular discussion topics. The reality is that Taehyung occupies a unique space within BTS. He's an artist whose interests span music, fashion, photography, art, and acting, a range that makes career planning inherently complex. For HYBE, managing an artist with that breadth of ambition means making choices about which opportunities to pursue and which to defer, and every one of those choices is made under the microscope of one of the most dedicated fan bases in entertainment history. So while Taehyung sits at number 7, don't mistake the ranking for a lack of spotlight. He's here because the questions surrounding his career are consistent and genuine, rooted in real observations about promotion patterns, creative direction, and untapped potential. And if you think the questions surrounding Taehyung are intense, wait until you hear about the member at number 6, a leader whose every word carries the weight of the entire group's direction.
Number 6. RM, a leader under scrutiny. When Kim Namjoon speaks, people listen. That's not a cliché. It's a documented pattern that has played out on stages at the United Nations, in Billboard interviews, and across every press conference BTS has ever held. As the group's leader and primary spokesperson since their debut in 2013, RM has carried a responsibility that goes far beyond writing verses and performing choreography. He's the voice that frames how the world understands BTS, and that means every decision HYBE makes about him is automatically interpreted as a signal about the group's broader trajectory. That weight became especially visible during BTS's extended hiatus announcement in June 2022. It was RM who delivered some of the most candid remarks during the now famous Festa dinner, openly discussing the group's need to find individual identities after nearly a decade of relentless group activity. His words were raw, thoughtful, and carefully chosen, but they also sent shockwaves through the fandom and the media. Headlines around the world ran with varying interpretations, some framing it as a potential disbandment, others as a natural creative pause. HYBE had to issue clarifying statements, but the initial narrative had already taken hold. That moment illustrated something fundamental about RM's position. He doesn't just represent himself. Every interview, every social media post, every lyric he writes gets filtered through the lens of BTS leadership. And when HYBE's decisions intersect with that leadership role, the scrutiny intensifies. Take his solo career as a prime example. RM released his first official solo album, Indigo, in December 2022, and it was unlike anything the mainstream K-pop audience expected. The album was a deeply personal, art-forward project featuring collaborations with artists like Erykah Badu, Anderson .Paak, Tableau, and Eugene. It drew heavily from RM's passions, visual art, philosophy, and introspection, and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Critics praised it widely. Pitchfork, a publication not known for covering K-pop, gave it a favorable review. The album wasn't chasing trends, it was establishing RM as a serious solo artist with a distinct creative identity. But the promotional rollout sparked familiar questions among ARMY. Fans noted that Indigo's promotion cycle was relatively compact. RM made select appearances, did a limited number of interviews, and didn't pursue the kind of extensive variety show circuit that Korean solo releases sometimes involved. Some fans interpreted this as HYBE underinvesting in the album's commercial potential. Others argued that RM himself likely preferred a more understated approach, consistent with the album's introspective tone and his well-known discomfort with excessive self-promotion. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, but the debate itself is revealing. It shows how deeply ARMY pays attention to promotional mechanics, not just whether an album exists, but how it's presented to the world, which playlists it lands on, which media outlets feature it, and how much institutional muscle is put behind it. Then came Right Place, Wrong Person, RM's second solo album, released in May 2024 during his military enlistment preparations. The album continued his artistic evolution, leaning into alternative rock and experimental sounds that pushed even further from conventional K-pop structures. Once again, the music was critically acclaimed. Once again, fans analyzed every detail of how HYBE handled the release window, the music video production, and the overall marketing strategy. Beyond music, RM's public persona adds another dimension to the scrutiny. He's arguably the most intellectually visible member of BTS. His love of art museums is well documented. He's visited galleries around the world and has spoken about contemporary art with a fluency that has earned him respect in the art community. In 2022, he even narrated a docuseries exploring Korean art and culture. These interests make him a unique figure in the idol industry, but they also create questions about whether HYBE fully leverages or even understands how to position an artist whose brand extends into high culture. RM has also been the member most willing to address the tensions between commercial expectations and artistic integrity. In multiple interviews, he's discussed the challenge of balancing what fans want with what he needs to create as an artist. He's talked about writer's block, about feeling pressure, and about the psychological toll of being the person who mediates between BTS's 7 individual identities and their collective image. These admissions are refreshing, but they also put HYBE in a delicate position. When the leader of your biggest act publicly reflects on creative struggles, the agency's response, or lack thereof, gets noticed. His military enlistment in December 2023 added yet another chapter. Like all Korean men, his service was mandatory, and he entered alongside other BTS members. But even in the lead-up to enlistment, fans were closely tracking how HYBE managed pre-enlistment releases, farewell content, and long-term planning for RM's post-military career. The question wasn't just, what will RM do when he returns? It was, does HYBE have a plan that matches the level of artist RM has become? That question matters because RM has effectively outgrown the standard idol framework. He's a published essayist in spirit, if not in title, a cultural commentator, a Grammy-nominated songwriter, and a musician whose solo work has been compared to artists outside the K-pop ecosystem entirely. Managing that kind of artist requires a different playbook than managing a traditional idol comeback, and ARMY watches closely to see whether HYBE recognizes the distinction. What places RM at number 6 is this exact dynamic. He's not just a member whose promotions get questioned. He's a member whose entire career positioning raises strategic questions. Fans don't just want to know what RM's next project is. They want to know if HYBE truly understands what they have in him. And if the scrutiny on BTS's leader feels intense, the member coming up at number 5 brings a completely different kind of attention, one driven by a career path so independent that it constantly raises new questions about where the line between artist and agency actually falls.
Number 5. Suga. Moves that raise questions. Min Yoongi has never been the type to follow a script someone else wrote for him, and that's precisely what makes every HYBE decision involving him so fascinating to watch, because with Suga, you're never entirely sure where the agency's strategy ends and the artist's own stubborn independence begins. From the earliest days of BTS, Suga stood out as the member most likely to challenge the conventional idol mold. While the K-pop industry thrives on polished image management and carefully curated personas, Suga built his identity on bluntness, raw lyricism, and a work ethic rooted in years of underground rap before he ever auditioned for big hit entertainment.
He's talked openly about his pre-debut struggles, working part-time jobs in Daegu, producing music on equipment he could barely afford, and nearly leaving the company before BTS debuted because he felt the idol path conflicted with his identity as a rapper and producer. That tension between idol expectations and artistic autonomy has defined Suga's entire career, and nowhere is it more visible than in his work as August D. The August D project began in 2016 with a self-titled mixtape that hit fans like a freight train. It was aggressive, deeply personal, and addressed topics that mainstream K-pop almost never touched: mental health struggles, the pressures of the entertainment industry, and his battle with depression and social anxiety. The mixtape wasn't released through Big Hit's official channels in the traditional sense. It was dropped on SoundCloud, free for anyone to download. That choice alone told you everything about Suga's priorities. The music mattered more than the commercial framework. The second August D mixtape, D2, arrived in 2020 and expanded the sonic palette significantly, incorporating jazz, funk, and traditional Korean instrumentation alongside hard-hitting hip-hop. It debuted at number 11 on the Billboard 200, a remarkable achievement for what was technically a free release. But once again, the promotional approach was minimal by industry standards. No elaborate comeback show, no week-long media blitz. Suga let the music do the talking. Then came 2023, and everything shifted. Suga released D-Day in April 2023, not as a mixtape, but as a full studio album. This was the culmination of the August D trilogy, and it arrived with a level of production and ambition that signaled a major creative statement. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and was accompanied by a world tour, the D-Day Tour, which saw Suga performing solo across Asia, the United States, and beyond. The documentary, Suga, Road to D-Day, released on Disney+, provided an intimate look at his creative process and the emotional journey behind the trilogy. For ARMY, this was the moment Suga's solo career reached its peak visibility, but it was also the moment that raised the most questions about HYBE's involvement. Fans noticed contrasts. The D-Day tour was a major undertaking, filling arenas across multiple continents, yet some fans felt the album's digital promotion didn't match the scale of the physical tour. Questions arose about playlist placements on major streaming platforms, the timing of music video releases, and whether HYBE's marketing machine was fully engaged or operating at partial capacity. Some fans pointed to specific instances where they felt competing releases within the HYBE umbrella received more visible marketing support during overlapping windows. These observations fed into a broader conversation that has followed Suga throughout his career. Does HYBE fully appreciate what August D represents? The August D persona isn't just a side project, it's the purest expression of who Min Yoon-gi is as an artist. It's the work he's most personally invested in, and fans who followed him since the first mixtape understand that. When they see what they perceive as gaps in promotional support, their reaction isn't casual disappointment, it's protective frustration. Beyond his own releases, Suga's work as a producer adds another layer of complexity. He's produced and written for artists both within and outside of HYBE, contributed to BTS's discography as a key creative force, and earned credits that span genres. His production work on tracks for artists like Halsey, Juice WRLD, and Max demonstrated a versatility that extends well beyond BTS's own catalog. Managing an artist who is simultaneously a performer, a producer, and a creative director requires a level of strategic flexibility that fans aren't always sure HYBE provides. And then there's the moment that genuinely shocked ARMY, the DUI incident in 2022. Suga was found to have operated an electric scooter while intoxicated, which resulted in his license being revoked. He issued a public apology, and HYBE released a statement. The incident was relatively minor in terms of legal consequences, but it was significant in terms of public perception, especially in South Korea, where public figures are held to exacting standards. How HYBE handled the communication around the incident, the timing of statements, the level of transparency, and the follow-up was itself a subject of fan analysis.
Suga enlisted for his mandatory military service in September 2023, choosing to fulfill it as a social service agent due to a shoulder injury he sustained before his debut, an injury that required surgery in 2020 and has been a recurring physical challenge throughout his career. Even the nature of his service became a public talking point, with some media outlets and online commentators debating whether social service carried the same weight as active duty. Army largely rallied in his defense, pointing to his well-documented injury history, but the conversation highlighted how every aspect of Suga's path invites scrutiny. What puts Suga at number 5 is the consistency of the pattern. It's not one decision or one project, it's a career-long dynamic where his independence as an artist seems to exist in constant negotiation with the commercial machinery around him. Army doesn't just follow Suga's music, they monitor the infrastructure supporting it, and they're not shy about raising flags when something feels off. Now, if Suga's independent streak keeps fans asking questions about agency support, the member at number 4 generates a completely different kind of pressure, one where the sheer scale of global attention feels like it's being made under a stadium's worth of spotlights.
Number 4. Jungkook, global attention. There's a reason the internet calls him the Golden Magne, and it has nothing to do with hype. Jungkook is, by virtually every measurable metric, one of the most popular entertainers on the planet. And when you operate at that scale, every decision made on your behalf doesn't just get noticed. It gets dissected by tens of millions of people in real time. Jungkook joined Big Hit Entertainment as a trainee at the age of 15, reportedly choosing the company specifically because of RM. He debuted with BTS in 2013 as the youngest member, just 15 years old, and over the following decade, grew from a shy teenager into a performer whose stage presence and vocal range consistently draw comparisons to some of the most accomplished artists in pop music history. His duality, quiet and humble off stage, explosive and commanding on it, became one of BTS's defining characteristics. But it was 2023 that truly tested the relationship between Jungkook's global stature and HYBE's ability to manage it. In July 2023, Jungkook released 7, featuring Lado, and the results were immediate and staggering. The single debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jungkook the first Korean solo artist to achieve that feat. The track accumulated over 15 million streams on Spotify in its first day alone. 7 wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural moment that placed Jungkook squarely at the center of global pop conversation. And ARMY noticed something. HYBE seemed to be going all in. The promotional push behind 7 was substantial. Jungkook appeared on major American media platforms, performed at global events, and received the kind of cross-platform marketing support that fans had been requesting for BTS members' solo endeavors for years. The collaboration with Lado, the summer-friendly production, the strategic release timing, everything pointed to a carefully engineered campaign designed to maximize commercial impact in the Western market. For many fans, this was exactly what they wanted. Finally, a BTS solo release was receiving the full weight of HYBE's promotional infrastructure. But it also opened a door to comparison, and comparison, in any fandom, is where friction begins. ARMY members who supported other BTS soloists began asking pointed questions. If HYBE could deliver this level of promotion for Jungkook, why hadn't similar efforts been made for other members' releases? Was the difference a matter of market strategy, artist preference, or something else entirely? The debate wasn't necessarily about diminishing Jungkook's success. Most fans celebrated it genuinely, but about whether the promotional disparity reflected an uneven allocation of resources within the company. Then came 3D, featuring Jack Harlow in October 2023, followed by his debut solo album Golden in November. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and spawned multiple charting singles. Jungkook's promotional schedule during this period was packed, a live showcase at Times Square, performances on American television, social media campaigns, and a listening party that generated global trending topics. By any objective measure, the Golden Era was one of the most commercially aggressive solo campaigns in BTS's history. But even within this success story, questions emerged. Some fans felt that certain creative decisions, particularly the heavy emphasis on English-language pop tracks, represented a strategic choice by HYBE to position Jungkook for the American market at the expense of showcasing his full artistic range. Jungkook's vocal abilities span far beyond upbeat pop. His covers of songs by artists like Charlie Puth, IU, and even operatic pieces have demonstrated a versatility that Golden, while commercially successful, only partially explored. The question of whether HYBE was prioritizing market penetration over artistic depth became a recurring talking point among fans who felt the album could have been more sonically adventurous. There was also the matter of Jungkook's solo activities prior to 2023. For years, Jungkook had released solo tracks and covers that generated enormous engagement. Euphoria, My Time, Still With You, and his cover of Falling by Harry Styles all demonstrated his pulling power. Yet a formal solo debut was delayed until relatively late compared to some expectations. Whether this was due to groups' scheduling priorities, military enlistment timing, or deliberate career planning by HYBE, the wait itself became a source of ongoing fan discussion. Jungkook's influence extends well beyond music charts. His impact on consumer markets has been documented extensively. Products he's been seen using or wearing frequently sell out within hours, a phenomenon so consistent that Korean media coined the term Jungkook effect. From fabric softener to wine to instant noodles, his unintentional endorsements have generated measurable economic impact. This level of commercial influence means that HYBE's decisions about Jungkook's public appearances, brand partnerships, and endorsements carry financial implications that go far beyond album sales. His FIFA World Cup performance in November 2022, where he performed Dreamers at the opening ceremony in Qatar, was another landmark moment. The performance was watched by an estimated 2 billion viewers worldwide, and it positioned Jungkook not just as a K-pop idol, but as a global entertainment figure. The scale of that platform raised expectations about what should come next, and those expectations became the lens through which fans evaluated every subsequent HYBE decision regarding his career. Jungkook enlisted for mandatory military service in December 2023, joining the same cycle as several other BTS members. His enlistment marked the temporary conclusion of what had been an extraordinarily productive solo period. But even as he stepped away from public life, the questions didn't stop. Fans continued to debate HYBE's long-term strategy for Jungkook, whether the golden era was a one-time commercial push or the beginning of a sustained solo trajectory that would continue after military service. What earns Jungkook the number 4 spot is the sheer magnitude of the spotlight he operates under. The attention isn't just big, it's global, instantaneous, and relentless. Every HYBE decision regarding him plays out on a stage where the audience numbers in the hundreds of millions, and at that scale, even small strategic choices carry enormous consequences. And if the global weight of Jungkook's spotlight feels intense, the member at number 3 brings something entirely different. A series of behind-the-scenes moves that caught ARMY off guard and left them searching for answers they didn't expect to need. Number 3. J-Hope, surprises behind the scenes. Young Hoseok doesn't do anything halfway. Whether he's commanding a stage, dropping a solo album, or making career decisions that nobody saw coming, J-Hope operates with a level of commitment that consistently catches people off guard. And it's precisely that element of surprise, both from him and from HYBE's handling of his career, that places him this high on the list. To understand why J-Hope generates the kind of attention he does, you have to understand what he represents within BTS. He's often described as the group's emotional anchor, the member whose energy holds the team together during difficult moments. But reducing him to a mood maker does a disservice to his artistic credentials. Before joining Big Hit Entertainment, Hoseok was already an accomplished street dancer in Gwangju, having won a national dance competition in 2008. His technical skill as a performer is arguably the most refined in the group, and his understanding of rhythm, movement, and stage design has influenced BTS's choreography and concert presentations for over a decade. But it was his solo trajectory that turned the most heads and raised the most questions. In July 2022, J-Hope released Jack in the Box, his debut solo album, and it arrived with a creative identity that surprised even longtime fans. The album leaned heavily into old-school hip-hop, grunge, and experimental sounds, a sharp departure from the bright, upbeat energy most casual listeners associated with him. Tracks like More and Arson showcased a darker, more introspective J-Hope, an artist wrestling with identity, ambition, and the pressure of stepping out from behind BTS's collective identity for the first time. The album debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and received broadly positive critical reception. But it was the promotional strategy, or what fans perceived as the lack of one, that sparked immediate debate. ARMY pointed out that Jack in the Box received notably limited traditional promotion. There was no physical album release at launch, an unusual decision for an artist of J-Hope's stature, especially in a market where physical sales significantly impact chart performance in South Korea. The album was initially available only on digital platforms, which fans argued put it at a structural disadvantage on charts like the Hangeo and Jaeon, now Circle chart, where physical sales are a major component of ranking. A limited physical release did eventually follow, but the delay left fans questioning whether HYBE had fully committed to the album's commercial potential from the start. Then came Lollapalooza. In July 2022, J-Hope became the first South Korean artist to headline a major American music festival when he closed out the main stage at Lollapalooza in Chicago. The performance was historic, not just for J-Hope personally, but for K-pop as an industry. He performed to a massive crowd, delivering a set that blended his solo material with BTS hits and demonstrated his ability to command a festival stage with the same authority as any established Western headliner. The performance was later released as a concert film, J-Hope in the Box, on Disney+. The Lollapalooza headline slot was a landmark moment, and HYBE promoted it accordingly. But fans noticed an interesting contrast. The energy and resources directed toward the festival performance seemed to significantly outpace what was allocated to the album itself. This created a perception, fair or not, that HYBE was more interested in the prestige of the headline slot than in building a sustained commercial campaign around Jack in the Box. Whether that perception reflected reality or simply the different mechanics of event promotion versus album marketing became yet another point of fan analysis. What really sent shockwaves through ARMY, however, was J-Hope's military enlistment. In April 2023, J-Hope became the first BTS member to begin mandatory military service, enlisting as an active duty soldier. The timing was significant. BTS had announced their hiatus in June 2022, and the Korean government's decision regarding the group's military service had been a national conversation for months. When J-Hope stepped forward first, it was widely interpreted as a deliberate choice, a senior member leading by example and setting the tone for the remaining members to follow. But the manner in which HYBE communicated and managed the enlistment period raised its own set of questions. Fans noted that content released during J-Hope's service, including behind-the-scenes footage and updates, was relatively sparse compared to what they expected. While military regulations naturally limit what can be shared, ARMY compared HYBE's approach with how other Korean agencies handled their enlisted artists' public communication and found what they considered gaps. J-Hope was discharged from military service in October 2024, making him the first BTS member to complete his service. His return was met with enormous fan enthusiasm, and expectations for what would come next were sky-high. ARMY anticipated a swift return to music, potentially a new album or tour announcement that would capitalize on the momentum of his homecoming. The speed and nature of HYBE's post-discharge plans for J-Hope became an immediate focal point. In March 2025, J-Hope released Hope on the Street Volume 1, a project tied to his docu series Hope on the Street, which explored street dance culture and featured collaborations with dancers from around the world. The project was a passion-driven endeavor that showcased his roots as a dancer, but some fans debated whether it was the type of major musical comeback they had been anticipating after 18 months of military service. What makes J-Hope's position at number 3 so compelling is the pattern of surprises. His career moves are rarely predictable, and HYBE's strategic decisions around those moves frequently leave ARMY with more questions than answers. He's an artist who consistently defies expectations, and that means the agency managing him is constantly being evaluated on whether they're keeping up. Now, if J-Hope's unpredictable path keeps ARMY guessing about what's next, the member at number 2 operates in a space where the questions aren't about surprises. They're about a popularity so massive that every single HYBE decision feels like it's being weighed against impossible expectations. Number 2. Jimin, a decision that sparks curiosity. Park Jimin doesn't just have fans. He has a force of nature behind him. His individual fan base is one of the largest and most dedicated in the entire K-pop ecosystem, and they track every detail of his career with a level of precision that would make intelligence analysts envious. So when HYBE makes a decision regarding Jimin, any decision, no matter how minor it might seem, it lands in an environment where millions of people are already watching, already analyzing, and already forming opinions before the ink is dry. That reality has shaped Jimin's entire solo narrative, and it's exactly why he sits at number 2 on this list. Jimin's appeal within BTS has always been distinct. His performance style, fluid, emotive, and technically demanding, draws from a foundation in contemporary dance that he studied at Busan High School of Arts before transferring to Korea Arts High School. He's the member most frequently cited by choreographers and dance professionals as having an exceptional ability to convey emotion through movement. But his appeal extends far beyond the stage. Jimin's personality, warm, openly affectionate with fans, and disarmingly honest about his vulnerabilities, has created a bond with ARMY that feels unusually personal even by K-pop standards. That bond is precisely what makes HYBE's handling of his career such a high-stakes endeavor. In March 2023, Jimin released Face, his debut solo album, and the results were historic. The lead single, Like Crazy, debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jimin the first Korean solo artist to top that chart. The achievement was monumental, a milestone that placed him alongside a very short list of artists who have ever reached that position. The album itself debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, and its tracks dominated streaming platforms globally in the days following release. The success of Like Crazy was undeniable. But within that success, ARMY identified what they considered critical questions about HYBE's promotional decisions. The primary debate centered on the song's version strategy. Like Crazy was released in both Korean and English versions, with the English version receiving significantly more radio push and playlist attention in Western markets. Some fans argued that this was a pragmatic decision. English-language tracks have historically performed better on American radio, and the Hot 100 ranking factors in radio airplay. Others felt that prioritizing the English version undermined the artistic integrity of the Korean original and reflected a broader HYBE tendency to chase Western chart metrics at the cost of authentic artistic presentation. The debate intensified when fans examined the post-debut promotional effort. After the initial chart success, some ARMY members felt that HYBE didn't sustain the momentum with follow-up promotions that could have extended the album's commercial life cycle. Comparisons were drawn, again, to how Western labels support their artists with extended radio campaigns, television appearances, and strategic single releases over several months. Whether HYBE's approach reflected the structural differences between the Korean and Western music industries or a genuine gap in promotional ambition became a polarizing topic within the fandom. Then there was the Face documentary and the accompanying content rollout. Jimin's vulnerability was on full display during this era. He spoke openly about the pressure of going solo, the anxiety of performing without his 6 bandmates beside him, and the emotional weight of carrying a debut album that he knew would be judged against BTS's collective legacy. These moments resonated deeply with fans, but they also raised questions about the support system around him. ARMY wanted to know, was HYBE providing Jimin with adequate resources, not just financial and logistical, but creative and emotional, to navigate the immense pressure of a solo career at this scale? Beyond Face, Jimin's collaborative work added further layers of discussion. His single HYBE, with Taehyung, released in January 2023 ahead of the album, was a commercial success and demonstrated his ability to hold his own alongside one of K-pop's most legendary vocalists. But fans noted the timing and questioned whether the collaboration was strategically positioned to build anticipation for Face or whether it was a separate initiative that could have been better integrated into the album's overall promotional arc. Jimin's social media presence is another area where HYBE's management style comes under scrutiny. His posts on platforms like Instagram and Weverse consistently generate record-breaking engagement. A single photograph can accumulate millions of likes within minutes. But fans have observed periods where Jimin's public communication seems to slow down unexpectedly, leading to waves of speculation about scheduling, health, or behind-the-scenes decisions that aren't being communicated transparently. His second solo album, Muse, released in July 2024, continued the pattern. The lead single, Who, became a global hit, topping charts across multiple countries and demonstrating Jimin's sustained commercial power. The album showcased a brighter, more pop-oriented sound compared to the introspective tone of Face, proving his range as a solo artist. Yet once again, ARMY scrutinized the promotional details, the number of scheduled appearances, the marketing budget relative to the album's potential, and how HYBE positioned the release within its broader roster calendar. What makes Jimin's situation particularly notable is the sheer size of the gap between his individual popularity and what fans perceive as the promotional support he receives. Jimin consistently ranks among the most searched, most streamed, and most discussed K-pop artists globally. His individual brand value has been estimated by Korean media outlets as among the highest in the entertainment industry. When an artist operates at that level, fans don't just expect adequate promotion. They expect promotion that matches the scale of influence their artist has already achieved independently. That expectation, and the recurring perception that it isn't always met, is what places Jimin at number 2. The questions surrounding him aren't occasional. They're systematic, detailed, and backed by data that fans compile with remarkable diligence. But there's one member who sits above even Jimin on this list. A member whose every career move feels like it carries the weight of BTS's entire future, and whose story with HYBE has produced the single most talked about question in the fandom. Number 1. Jin, the one who most often leaves ARMY wondering. Kim Seokjin sits at the top of this list for a reason that goes beyond any single album, any single promotion, or any single headline. Jin's position here is the result of years, an entire career's worth, of moments where HYBE's decisions regarding him left ARMY not just curious, but genuinely bewildered. No other BTS member's relationship with the agency's strategic machinery has generated as many persistent, unresolved questions as Jin's. And when you examine the timeline, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Let's start with context that matters. Jin is the eldest member of BTS, born in December 1992. In Korean culture, age carries significance that extends beyond simple seniority. It shapes expectations about respect, responsibility, and the role an individual plays within a group dynamic. Jin's position as the eldest Hyung in BTS has always given his actions and career moves a particular weight. When he makes a decision, it's interpreted not just as a personal choice, but as something that could influence the group's direction. And when HYBE makes decisions about him, the scrutiny is amplified accordingly. Now, here's where things get interesting, and where ARMY's questions begin to pile up. Throughout BTS's career as a group, fans consistently observed that Jin received fewer solo opportunities compared to some other members. His solo tracks within BTS albums, songs like Awake, Epiphany, Moon, and Abyss, showcased a vocal ability that critics and vocal coaches alike have praised for its clarity, emotional delivery, and unique tonal quality. Jin possesses a bright, clean tenor that stands out distinctly in BTS's vocal line. Yet despite this recognized talent, his solo discography outside of BTS remained remarkably limited for years. This wasn't something ARMY overlooked. Fan-compiled data tracking solo promotions, magazine covers, brand deals, and media appearances consistently placed Jin lower than his popularity would seem to warrant. And his popularity, to be clear, is enormous. Jin has ranked number 1 in multiple global polls for most popular BTS member. His visual appeal, he's been called worldwide handsome, a nickname he gave himself with characteristic humor that somehow stuck globally, generates massive engagement every time he appears publicly. Airport arrival videos of Jin alone have accumulated millions of views. The gap between his demonstrable popularity and his solo promotional footprint became one of the longest-running discussions in the BTS fandom. In October 2022, Jin released The Astronaut, a single co-written with Coldplay. The collaboration came about after BTS and Coldplay's earlier partnership on My Universe, and Chris Martin personally participated in the songwriting process. The single was emotional, melodic, and widely understood as Jin's farewell message to ARMY before his military enlistment. He performed it live at Coldplay's concert in Buenos Aires, standing on stage in front of tens of thousands of fans in a moment that became one of the most emotionally charged performances in recent K-pop memory. But even this milestone raised questions. ARMY noted that The Astronaut was a single release, not an album. While some members had released full solo albums or mixtapes before their enlistments, Jin entered military service with just one official solo single to his name. Fans debated endlessly about whether this was Jin's own choice. He's known for being relatively private about his creative ambitions, or whether HYBE had not prioritized developing a pre-enlistment solo project for him on the scale that his popularity merited. Jin enlisted on December 13, 2022, becoming the first BTS member to begin mandatory military service. His enlistment was the event that set the clock ticking on BTS's military era, a period that would eventually see all 7 members serving. The symbolic weight of Jin going first was enormous, and ARMY watched HYBE's handling of the moment with intense focus. The communication was relatively straightforward, but fans wanted more. More content, more acknowledgement of the significance, more indication that HYBE had a concrete plan for Jin's return. Then came his discharge on June 12, 2024, and this is where the spotlight truly intensified. Jin emerged from military service to a hero's welcome. His discharge event was attended by all available BTS members, and the images of the reunion circulated globally within minutes. The timing of his return, 18 months of service completed, made him the first member back, and expectations for what would follow were astronomical. HYBE's first major post-discharge decision involving Jin was his appearance at the 2024 Festa event, where he participated in a massive fan meeting celebrating BTS's 11th anniversary. He also carried the Olympic torch for the 2024 Paris Olympics relay in South Korea, a moment of national recognition that underscored his status as a public figure beyond entertainment. But the question that dominated every fan forum and social media platform was simple: when would Jin's solo album arrive? The answer came in November 2024 with HYBE, Jin's debut solo album. The album was a reflection of everything Jin wanted to communicate: warmth, sincerity, and an earnest connection with listeners. The lead single, Running Wild, carried an optimistic, rock-influenced energy, and the album as a whole embraced a feel-good tone that matched Jin's public persona. It was the album fans had waited years for. And yet, predictably, the promotional rollout became the subject of intense analysis. ARMY tracked every detail: the number of music show appearances, the variety show bookings, the international media coverage, the playlist placements. Comparisons to other members' solo campaigns were inevitable, and fans who had spent years documenting what they perceived as a promotional deficit for Jin were watching with particular vigilance. Every perceived shortcoming was cataloged. Every positive step was acknowledged, but measured against what fans believed Jin's popularity deserved. What places Jin definitively at number 1 is not any single incident. It's the cumulative weight of a decade's worth of questions. From line distributions in group songs to solo promotional budgets, from pre-enlistment preparations to post-discharge career planning, no BTS member has been the subject of more sustained inquiry regarding HYBE's decision-making than Kim Seokjin. ARMY's questions about Jin aren't rooted in speculation. They're rooted in observed patterns tracked over years, supported by data fans have meticulously compiled. And perhaps that's the most telling thing about Jin's position at the top of this list. The questions keep coming because ARMY believes the answers matter, not just for Jin, but for what his treatment says about how HYBE values the artists who built the company into what it is today. And there you have it, 7 BTS members, 7 distinct stories, and one common thread. Every decision HYBE makes about these artists is watched, analyzed, and debated by a fandom that refuses to be passive observers. We started at number 7 with Taehyung, an artist whose creative ambitions span music, fashion, and acting, ambitions so broad that every strategic choice HYBE makes about which path to prioritize invites immediate scrutiny. His layover era demonstrated that even a Billboard charting album can raise more questions than it answers when fans believe the promotion didn't match the artist's potential. At number 6, RM showed us what happens when a group's leader builds a solo identity that transcends the idol framework entirely. His work with Indigo and Right Place, Wrong Person positioned him as one of the most artistically ambitious figures in Korean music, and every HYBE decision about his career is filtered through the question of whether the agency truly understands the caliber of artists they're managing. Suga, at number 5, brought the tension between artistic independence and corporate strategy into sharp focus. His August D trilogy stands as one of the most compelling solo projects in K-pop history, and ARMY's protective instinct toward his creative vision means every promotional gap gets flagged and every resource allocation gets compared. Jungkook, at number 4, reminded us that operating at a truly global scale comes with a unique set of pressures. His golden era was one of the most commercially successful solo campaigns in BTS history, but that very success raised questions about equity, about whether the resources deployed for one member's promotions should set the standard for all. J-Hope, at number 3, proved that surprises generate their own kind of scrutiny. From the deliberately dark pivot of Jack in the Box to his historic Lollapalooza headline slot to being the first member to enlist and return, every chapter of his solo career has challenged expectations, and every HYBE decision around those chapters has been evaluated against what fans believed was possible. Jimin, at number 2, showed us the pressure that comes with possessing a fanbase so massive and so meticulous that no promotional detail escapes notice. His chart-topping achievements with Face and Muse are a matter of public record, but so is ARMY's exhaustive documentation of every perceived gap between his popularity and the promotional infrastructure supporting him. And Jin, at number 1, sits at the top because his story represents the longest-running, most deeply tracked set of questions in the entire fandom. A decade of observations, compiled data, and unresolved discussions about whether HYBE's strategic decisions have consistently matched the popularity and talent of BTS's eldest member. That's not casual fan curiosity. That's a sustained inquiry born from genuine investment in an artist's career. But here's something worth stepping back and acknowledging. Not every agency decision that raises questions is inherently wrong. The entertainment industry operates on timelines, budgets, market analyses, and contractual structures that fans don't always have visibility into. A promotion that looks underwhelming from the outside might reflect an artist's personal preference for a quieter rollout. A delayed project might be the result of scheduling logistics rather than neglect. And sometimes, what appears to be an uneven allocation of resources is actually a tailored strategy designed to match each artist's unique market position and creative goals. That nuance matters. ARMY's vigilance is one of the fandom's greatest strengths. It ensures that BTS's members are never taken for granted, and it holds the agency accountable in ways that benefit the artists. But it's equally important to distinguish between genuine concerns backed by evidence and assumptions fueled by incomplete information. What's undeniable is this. BTS's 7 members have each built careers that demand serious, thoughtful management. They're not interchangeable products on an assembly line. They're individual artists with distinct identities, ambitions, and audiences. And the way HYBE navigates the complexity of managing all 7 of those careers simultaneously will continue to be one of the most closely watched dynamics in global entertainment. So now the question goes to you. Which BTS member do you think is most affected by HYBE's decisions? Is it Taehyung with his untapped creative range? Jungkook with his global commercial power? Jimin with his record-breaking chart presence? Or is it Jin, whose story has fueled more questions than any other? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're just getting started.